Yes, indeed. Well, that news, of course, has still yet to be confirmed. But at this point, the moment that the days keep passing, it's becoming the world's worst kept secret. Come on,
Yeah.
Xavi, announce it already. Announce him. Anyways, we're about 18 minutes in, and we were only speaking about Real Madrid and Barcelona. And guys, we have to talk Premier League because that is where a lot of loose ends have to be tied up, and it could start tonight. Let's talk about Manchester United and Spurs. Woo! Let's talk about Manchester.
Do we have to?
My days.
Well, if it helps, it does include Villa for you.
Okay.
But Juan, let me come to you first, of course, because United and Spurs, of course, everybody's pretty much sold their house and home and remortgaged their house just to find the money to pay for the expensive flights and accommodation in Bilbao, because that is the Europa League final where, surprisingly, Manchester United will face Spurs. But they still have business to take care of in the Premier League. And more importantly, they have a lot of face to save in the Premier League because both of them hovering above the relegation zone. They're separated by just a point. United just ahead of Spurs. They're in action tonight. United against Chelsea. Villa going up against Spurs in this one. Do you see any of them getting anything out of tonight?
No.
And who needs the win more?
I don't. They've switched off. Man United, they've switched off. They've gone. Their minds are elsewhere. I mean, I find it remarkable that your mind has to switch to Europa League final when you've still got Premier League games to play.
Yeah.
I sort of semi-understand it because you don't want to get an injury, therefore you miss the final, therefore you diminish your chances of winning. I sort of get that. But this has not happened over the last fortnight. These two teams have been a shambles all season. I mean, between Man United and Spurs, they've lost 37 games. 38 games in the Premier League season. They've almost lost a Premier League season between them. It's nuts. I've never heard anything like it in my life. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in my life for two sides that are really top-end sides and really, really big clubs, humongous clubs, to have lost that amount of games. I mean, it's just remarkable. I mean, there's just no surprise every time Man United play now. And it wouldn't stun me. It wouldn't stun me tonight if Chelsea beat them by a distance and Villa beat Spurs by a distance. It might not be cruise control in terms of 4 or 5s, but it might be a lack of effort or a lack of putting your foot in or a lack of desire and a lack of playing for the badge on the front of the shirt. But I find it remarkable. These two teams are going into a Europa League final with a form that they've been in the Premier League. It's staggering.
Yeah, absolutely staggering. LME, your boys of Villa up against Spurs. Again, Don can't really make a case for Spurs up against the Villains. But how do you see tonight going? Who really just at least needs to put something good together before they head into this major final?
Yeah, but I mean, they're aside from the horrific display of seasons by both clubs, there's also injuries. Kulusevski's out as well. That's a big for Tottenham. Human-Son should be available, but you know, it doesn't really matter. Just the issue is that Tottenham are where they are because they deserve to be. The same with Manchester United. And, you know, this game is big for Aston Villa. It's the last home game of the season. Obviously, that continued push to try and make a top 5 remains. They're also angry about the fact that they're playing on Friday instead of Sunday, which was originally called. So they're going to be up for that. Villa haven't lost a game at home in the last 20 matches in all competitions. So I don't expect a Villa loss. And I expect Postecoglou to rotate a little bit for this Europa League final. So I don't really see a shocking result here from a Villa loss or anything like that. I just, or Chelsea losing to Manchester United. And we're about to see the worst Europa League final in history. That's just
I think the LME, I think it's going to be the opposite. I think you look at it too.
It'll be fun. Yeah.
It's going to be 5-4. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be amazing.
Right. It'll be like a car accident, right? You can't help but look. Yeah.
But it's going to be a brilliant spectacle.
The real question, Alexis, is will the Europa League final at least save something for either club, right? Will they make it? And the way that I see it, well, the way that I see it is that I see it as a Band-Aid on that gunshot wound, right? Where or in the same way, like let's say you're walking through the desert and you find a bottle of water. It may satisfy your thirst for that moment, but you still have to walk the desert, meaning that Tottenham and Manchester United may win a trophy and it may give you some financial and you might get Champions League football. I mean, it makes me feel sick to just think that either club's going to play in the Champions League next season. But it doesn't mean that we solve the whole ongoing issue, which is both these clubs don't just need a change of fortune. They need a complete change of identity and culture. And I don't know if that, from a Tottenham perspective, if winning the Europa League even saves his job, to be honest with you, at this point, regardless of what happened. And with Ruben Amorim, I think I give him a little bit more just because he arrived in November, right? But this is Postecoglou's second season, and he refuses to be more pragmatic in his system. So, yeah, I agree, Don. I think it's going to be one of these beautiful car accidents. 5-4, fouls everywhere, terrible own goals. But it is, statistically speaking, per position, the worst Europa League final.
I think it's bigger. It feels bigger for Man United, this one. Don't forget when I was at Liverpool in 1990, it took Liverpool 30 years to win a title off the back of Stevie's games in 89 and how good they were in the 80s, how dominant they were, but it took them 30 years. This game, for me, feels as though it's slightly bigger for Man United, because if they don't make the Champions League this year, with a knock-on of PSL and the knock-on of how much money they're going to have in the summer, it feels as though Man United, Champions League-wise, in top 4, even though it's 5 this season, but top 4 generally, making Champions League spots, they might not even make top 4 for 30 years. It feels as though it's so big for Man United. They have to win this trophy to get back into the Champions League this year, to then give them more funds to strengthen and spend in the summer. While if Tottenham don't win one, yes, it would be huge for Postecoglou. It'd be massive for him to walk away with the trophy, because he's not going to be staying on next season. I think we all, in terms of the Xabi Alonso, the worst kept secret, I think it's the same scenario for Ange Postecoglou. I think he'll probably walk whether he wins or loses it. But Tottenham, who have never won a Champions League, I don't think they'll miss it too much. It'd be nice for their fans to be in it and win a trophy, of course. But I just get the sense this is humongous for Man United in terms of their future.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say that as I remind everybody, I live 10 minutes away from Stamford Bridge, and I had tickets to go tonight to support United, where I don't exactly hide where my loyalties lie. And I've elected to watch at home in the comfort.
No, bottle job.
I'm going to watch at home where I can continuously weep in private.
Yeah. And you know what? Stamford Bridge is a terrible stadium for environment, so don't worry about it.
Honestly, but Stamford Bridge food.
Oh yeah, that's good. I agree.
Stamford Bridge media food.
Top three. Chef's kiss.
Sure. For me, probably top. But sadly, we digress, because I mean, speaking of these two, just caused damage to my nervous system. Everyone's calling the Europa League final the dysfunctional Classico. We will see exactly what happens there for that one. But let's move on to the guys at the top of the table, shall we? The top 4. Obviously, Liverpool have, done their job. Arsenal pretty much as well. But in terms of Newcastle, City, Chelsea, even Villa, maybe even Forest as well, we could see what happens there. Probably not. But who do you expect to wrap up that top 4? LME, let me start with you.
Well, I wrote a prediction piece months ago, and it was kind of like trying to just predict what's going to happen. And I think I had Newcastle there. So I think I'm going to stick with that, because I think even a draw against Arsenal might be okay for them. So I think that Newcastle should be okay. Now, the rest is interesting, because Chelsea and Forest have to face each other. So, even though Forest have, by the way, not making Champions League, they still have confirmed European competition for the first time since 94-95. That is remarkable for a team that was deducted points back in March last year, escaped relegation by 6 points last season, et cetera, et cetera. So, they'll be up for it. It'll be the last home game at City Ground of the season against Chelsea, so we'll have to wait and see. Villa have to win both games, and then they have to expect that hopefully some points are dropped. And Man City, I mean, I think they'll make it, but I don't think it's going to be as clear as cut, because I don't know how much the FA Cup final is going to take out of them. Bournemouth is not necessarily going to be an easy fixture. And despite Fulham dropping a little bit, neither it is. So I do see Newcastle getting it. I think Man City are going to get it. I have to go with my heart here, and I have to believe that Aston Villa are going to do it. I think we're going to do it. I think that Chelsea are going to drop points against Nottingham Forest. And I think that Villa will win both games because they're playing Tottenham and Manchester United. And I think just because of that, I think it's going to happen. But Newcastle for sure. I think a draw is enough for them against us.
Yeah, Don. Well, Chelsea also have 1 or maybe 1.5 eyes on their final in European football as well. So
good point.
Could that also affect their Premier League form? What do you think, that they could drop some points and LME's villains will get in there?
Well, they've only got 64 million players to choose from in the conference. So I think with their 7 goalkeepers, I think with their 7 goalkeepers and 14 wingers, I think they might be okay in the conference final.
Yeah.
I've got the league table in front of me. I mean, the best that Villa can do is get to 69. So they're on 63 at the minute. They win the 2 games, they can get to 69. The Chelsea-Forest game, or the Forest-Chelsea game at the last day of the season, I mean, that's going to be huge. Yeah. I mean, I think Forest probably beat Chelsea. Therefore, I think probably Forest and Chelsea might miss out. So I think with Villa, because I think they'll get a win tonight, and I think they'll win on the last day of the season, so they might be on 69. The only thing that might harm Aston Villa, so when I was saying earlier about tonight might not be a 4 or a 5, they need a 5 or a 6 or a 7, because the only thing that's harming Villa, is their goal difference. So they can get to 69. The goal difference is slightly weaker than everyone else, but I'm going to stick with LME, my man, and I'm going to say Forest will beat Chelsea on the last day of the season, and you'll just squeak through. But it's going to be tough. Newcastle getting there. I don't even mind. My worry for Newcastle is their away form is not particularly great, and they've panicked me slightly. They got battered against Villa 4-1 a couple of weeks back. Useless in that game. They scraped a good point against Brighton away last week, which is a vital point. Best I think they can do against Arsenal, even though I think they beat them 3 times this season, all comps. I think the best they can do is a point. But if they then beat Everton at home on the last day of the season, which I think they will do, is they should easily get to sort of 69, 70. So, to answer your question, LME, you're going to be top 5. You're going to be Champions League football next season, and you're going to be playing with either Spurs or Man United. And which one is going to be that's going to be joining you?
Yeah, God bless you, Don. I know the Champions League doesn't sound so great now when you tell me about it.
No,
and by the way, just very quickly, how much of a shambles Man United and Tottenham have been this season? It's the first season in this format that no Champions League teams have dropped down into Europa League. Otherwise, there'd be history long time ago.
Yeah, well, it looks like LME might be hoping my boys of Manchester United could do him a favor against Chelsea. So that would definitely help, but don't count on it, LME. But Don just gave me the perfect segue right there in terms of a really quick preview for Arsenal going up against Newcastle. As Don mentioned, Newcastle have been an absolute thorn in Mikel Arteta and the Gunners side, especially this season. They're going up against each other. Still, some stakes are high, mainly for Newcastle, as we pointed out. How do you see this one going?
I mean, kind of like what Don was saying, right? Newcastle have done a remarkable job over Arsenal this season. The 2 legs in the Carabao Cup, and obviously the win at St. James's Park as well. And it would be the first time in Arsenal's history, if they lose, where somebody's won 4 times against them in a season. I don't see it happening for the same reasons that Don was talking about. Newcastle are formidable at home. Away from home, they're inconsistent. And they're not as solid. And against Arsenal, I believe their record is not great. If you have to include even all the 20 matches, I believe it's only 1 result out of those last 20. So everything really points to Arsenal here. The issue, though, is that, as you mentioned, Alexis, this is not necessarily a very strong-willed Arsenal right now that are kind of like, with one leg trying to get over the cross line after obviously losing in the Champions League as well. So it might be tricky, but there are key injuries as well for Newcastle. No Botman, Joelinton remains out as well. Kieran Trippier's not playing. So everything's really going to fall to the hands once again of Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, Murphy, of course, etc. But I think Arsenal and Newcastle, I think I see a draw in this one, though, just because I'm not as convinced with Arsenal as of recently, despite of what's happening historically. So I see a draw, and 69 points is the marker for me, and both get into the Champions League.